This video lesson will be about solving equations using the distributive property. By the end of this lesson, we will be able to apply the distributive property when it's necessary, and we will continue using properties of equality to solve equations. Let's take a look at the first example. This equation is different from the equations we've seen in the previous lessons because there are these grouping symbols, these parentheses here. Just like when we were simplifying expressions in the previous unit, in order to get rid of those grouping symbols, we can usually use the distributive property. In this problem, we can distribute 5 to both 2 and 4x. Remember, when we're distributing, we use multiplication. So 5 times 2 becomes 10. 5 times 4x is 20x, which is still equal to 85. We know that the left side is still equivalent to the right side because we use the distributive property, one of our number properties. Okay, now what's next? This looks similar to the two-step equations we've seen in lessons 9 and 9b. I need to isolate this x. I prefer to draw a wall. And now I see that 10 is the least attached to x, so I can use the opposite of 10, or its additive inverse, to combine with 10. 10 and negative 10 will combine to 0. If I subtract 10 on one side, I must subtract 10 on the other side to keep both the left and right side of the equations equivalent. So now we are left with 20x equals 85 minus 10 is 75. Subtracting 10 on both sides is using the subtraction property of equality. Our focus is still to isolate x, so now I can divide both sides by 20. When I divide both sides by 20, I will end up with a decimal or a fraction. 20 does not divide evenly into 75. I can end up with 20 fitting into 75 3 whole times, and 3 times 20 is 60, so that means I have 15 out of 20 left over. Or 15 over 20 reduces. I can divide by 5 3 times, divide by 5 4 times. This is equivalent to 3 3/4. However, most of us would use our calculator to divide 7 and 20, and we would find out from our calculator that x is equal to 3.75. Both 3.75 and 3 3/4 are equivalent. You can express your answer either way. This last step was using the division property of equality. Okay, once again, I see grouping symbols here, and although n and n are like terms, I cannot combine them yet. So let's distribute this 5. So I have n plus 5n, and 5 times negative 1 is negative 5, and that's still equal to 7. My first step, I use the distributive property. Now, this equation is slightly different from example 1. I see that I have n, this is really 1n, plus 5 more. If I combine like terms, I have 6n minus 5 is now equal to 7. I just used combining like terms. My goal is to isolate the variable. I want n alone. The negative 5 is the least attached. The additive inverse would be positive 5. I have to use the opposite. I would like this negative 5 to move over, so I use its opposite, combines to 0, it's no longer there. So I currently have 6n equals 12. We still want n alone. This time, I'm going to divide both sides by 6. My final answer is n equals 2. Those last two steps here, when I added 5 to both sides, represented the addition property of equality. And then my final step, when I divided by 6 on both sides, represented the division property of equality. Okay, let's summarize our steps for solving equations. Be sure to copy down these notes carefully, as you will need them for your next lesson in class. First, we should always try to distribute if possible. Our goal is to get rid of those parentheses. And then we always check to see if we can combine like terms. But remember, we can only combine like terms if they were on the same side, meaning the same side of the equal sign. And third, we use our properties of equality to isolate the variable. I'd like you to pause the video here, try these on your own, and then press play to check. Okay, let's see how you did. In this first problem, we should distribute at the beginning. 3 times 2x gave us 6x, 3 times negative 6 gave us negative 18. When you add 18 over, we end up with 36. We divide by 6 to find out x is equal to 6. Number 4, we still have to get rid of these grouping symbols first, so I end up with 8m and negative 12 here. But then, in my next step, I saw I could combine like terms to get 24m. I now have 24m minus 12 equals negative 24, a two-step equation. Addition property of equality allows me to add 12 to both sides. Division property of equality allows me to divide by 24. This is not correct. How many times does 24 divide into 12? It is not 2 times. This is not correct. Let's fix this. This fraction will reduce to be m equals negative, if I divide 12 by 12 once and 24 by 12 2 times, I end up with negative 1/2. Please be sure that you have negative 1/2 for your solution. By the end of this lesson, we should all be able to apply our distributive property tomorrow in class when it's necessary. Okay, only if there's grouping symbols, and then we continue using properties of equality to solve equations. Thank you for watching.